We're getting this shindig rolling. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gerry Spomer. I'm the regional coordinator for ABATE of Michigan, Region 17, which is the center portion of the Upper Peninsula. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Dondi Vesprini. He's ABATE's attorney, as well as associate with Buckfire and Buckfire. It's Michigan's premier motorcycle insurance investigator company. So he's been working with our legislative committee. He's a member of our board of directors. He's been down in Lansing working with this insurance reform committee that Mr. LaFave is on. Mr. LaFave has been issuing or trying these trial balloons, I call them, bills, and Dondi's been kind enough to show Beau all of his shortcomings. So he's going from bad to worse. We'll let Dondi take it over here. He can explain to you exactly what you're going to be missing out on, not only as motorcyclists, but as car and auto drivers too. This affects everybody. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dondi Vesprini.
Thanks, everybody. For those of you that don't know Gerry, then I'm absolutely positive you don't know me. So as Gerry said, I'm the attorney for ABATE of Michigan. It's my pleasure to do so. I've been working with ABATE in one capacity or another since about 1999, and then I had the opportunity and the honor, to be honest with you, to become ABATE's attorney in 2011. My day job is a trial attorney. I'm a personal injury attorney. I'm based out of Southfield, Michigan. So that's what I've been doing since since 2001. I started off, I worked in the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office for about 3 years. And then after I was done with that, I flipped over to the civil side and have been representing injured motorcyclists since about 2001. So the perspective that I bring on the No Fault Act is I deal with it every single day. I mean, representing injured folks, not only motorcyclists, but folks that are involved in auto accidents. No fault is extremely, extremely important. And when I started doing some things with ABATE legislatively about 3 or 4 years ago, and they asked me to go up to Lansing with them and talk with some legislators every time one of these new packages of bills rolls around that wants to cap or eliminate no-fault benefits, the perspective that I brought to them was, I'm not a politician, thankfully. I'm not a politician in the least bit. But what I try to do with them is these legislators, they deal with bills on a wide variety of topics every day. It's not like they're experts in any one particular bill that they see. So my job with ABATE is basically to go help educate the legislators on what this bill actually means. They're looking at this bill on paper, and they'll say, well, sounds good, sounds bad. They have clerks that review these things for them. But a lot of them don't understand the realities of what happens if these bills get passed, how these laws get played out in courtrooms, how these laws get interpreted, what these benefits that they're talking about capping, what they actually mean. So what I'd like to do is, there's a lot of misconceptions about no fault. People that have never had to use it, the biggest thing that comes to their mind all the time is we pay the highest insurance premiums in Michigan, get rid of no fault, without really knowing what no fault means or without realizing or understanding whether getting rid of no fault is even going to decrease your insurance. So what I'd like to do briefly is, before you understand what these caps mean and what these repeals mean, it kind of helps to understand if you have an understanding what no fault is, because there's a lot of misconceptions and things that are out there. So in Michigan, and if you guys want to move up, if you can, you can. I know the screen is kind of small. If you're having a hard time seeing it, feel free to move up. But essentially, this is when no fault applies, okay, to kind of nip things right in the bud and kind of take you right from Jump Street. No fault applies whenever there's a motor vehicle involved in your accident. So if you're driving down the road on your motorcycle and you hit a pothole, no fault doesn't apply because there wasn't a car involved. If you're going down the road and you're involved in an accident with another motorcycle, which frequently, not frequently, but it happens from time to time, there's no fault involved because there wasn't a motor vehicle involved. Motorcycles aren't considered motor vehicles for purposes of no fault. So to trigger your no fault benefits, there's got to be an automobile involved. So like a car, a truck, a bus, that's what triggers your no fault. It was enacted in 1973, and we're a pure no fault state, which means that Your no-fault benefits are essentially your economic loss, your medical expenses, your wage loss, your prescriptions, and then we've got a whole separate claim against an at-fault driver for your pain and suffering damages, which would be your non-economic loss. So we're a pure no-fault state, and we divide claims up that way. One of the reasons that we try to protect no-fault and try to keep no-fault is because it's probably the best system in the country for providing benefits to people who are seriously injured in accidents. There's no other states that are like us. And it's one of the reasons that the insurance industry is trying to reform it or repeal it. Under the No Fault Act, you're entitled to prompt payment of your medical expenses. You're entitled to prompt payment of your wage loss. Other states, most every other state, that are not no-fault states, one, you would have to sue the other driver for all these things. You'd have to sue the other driver for your medical bills, your wage loss, prescriptions, your pain and suffering damages. It all gets rolled up into one claim against the at-fault driver. Any of you that have been involved in a lawsuit know that these things don't resolve overnight. So you potentially could be waiting a year, 2 years for your lawsuit to resolve. In the meantime, going without your medical bills being paid, going without any wage loss coming in, and unless you have the financial means to support yourself over the course of a 2-year lawsuit while your medical bills are piling up and you have no income coming in, it usually puts people in a pretty dire position. So that's why the no-fault system is the best system in the country, in that you're not supposed to have to sue your no-fault carrier for your no-fault benefits. You can get your medical bills paid. Usually you claim loan within a month of the accident. They'll take care of your medical bills. They'll take care of your wages. That way you have your economic loss being provided. You have your medical bills being paid for while your claim against the at-fault driver is going, so that you can survive and not have to file bankruptcy. The trade-off with it is that in Michigan, since we do get no-fault benefits and you do get prompt payment of all these different economic expenses, the trade-off is Michigan put a little hurdle in trying to sue the at-fault driver for that other claim, for your pain and suffering claim. Just being that your injury has to amount to a serious impairment of body function. Okay, Michigan has an injury threshold when it comes to your claim against the at-fault driver. There is no threshold for your no-fault claim, your economic claim. You could skin your knee in an accident. Your no-fault carrier is going to have to be responsible to pay for that Band-Aid to cover your knee. Okay, so it doesn't matter how bad your injuries are for a no-fault case. It's just they have to be more of a serious type of an injury to pursue a claim against the at-fault driver. To trigger your right to no-fault benefits, if you're the driver and if you're the owner of the motorcycle you're on, you've got to have insurance on your bike to get no-fault benefits. If you're the owner of an uninsured motorcycle, even if you're involved with an auto, you don't get your no-fault benefits. If you're not driving your own motorcycle, so if you're a passenger on a bike that's not yours, or if you're borrowing a buddy's bike and you're involved in an accident, doesn't matter what the insurance situation is, you still get your no-fault benefits. The no-fault disqualification only applies to the owner of an uninsured bike if that owner is the driver. If you're driving your own bike, you've got to have insurance on it to get no-fault. We talked a little bit about this. The accident to get no-fault benefits has to arise out of there has to be a motor vehicle involved in your accident. Okay, so that's what triggers it. It's only if there's a motor vehicle involved. And just as a side, one of the things that you see with insurance companies, I've seen sometimes with insurance companies that try to take advantage of folks that don't know no-fault very well if you've never been involved with it before. Involvement does not mean contact. So if you have a situation where, a common scenario that you see is if the motorcyclist is going through the intersection, somebody's coming the other way, makes a left-hand turn in front of the bike, they didn't see the bike, and the bike goes down, even if there was no contact between the motorcycle and the automobile, as long as that motor vehicle was involved in the accident, meaning had something to do with the occurrence of the accident, you're entitled to no-fault benefits. So sometimes it's a favorite trick of the insurance industry to send letters out. They'll get a police report for an accident, and they'll see there was no contact. They'll send a letter out and say you're not entitled to no-fault benefits because there was no contact between the vehicles. That's not the standard. The standard isn't contact, the standard is involvement. So as long as there's a motor vehicle involved in your accident, you're entitled to these benefits. So these are the benefits that you're entitled to, okay, whenever you're involved in an accident. And I should point out that the reason it's called no fault is because another perk of our system is you're entitled to these benefits irrespective of fault. So even if you were at fault for the accident, you still get your no-fault benefits. Fault's not a consideration. So an insurance company is not ever going to be able to pull a police report and say, well, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Motorcyclist, looks like you were going too fast, you know, looks like you failed to yield, we're not going to pay your benefits, that'll never fly. Fault is irrelevant for purposes of a no-fault claim. So you're entitled to these benefits irrespective of fault, which is another perk of our system. We're the only state in the country that you can get your medical bills paid, your wage loss paid, all these benefits paid and taken care of, even if you were at fault for the accident. Medical expenses is the first category. And the standard that the No Fault Act uses is it's got to be for medical treatment that's necessary for the injured person's care, recovery, and rehabilitation. So things like, you know, your hospital bills, any doctor's visits, you know, those are the obvious ones. But there's a whole package of benefits under the medical expense umbrella that you may not think about or think of that fall under this. In Michigan, it's unlimited. They're unlimited medical expenses. So there's not any type of a cap on that. You're due unlimited medical expenses, and there's no time cap on that either. So, you know, for anybody who's, you know, whether you're injured and you're laid up for a month or two, all the way up to people that sustain traumatic brain injuries and need lifetime care. There's no time limit on your medical expenses. It's a lifetime benefit so long as the bills remain related to the accident, and there's no dollar cap on there. So if you look at your auto policies, your motorcycle policies, these different numbers or different caps on there, none of those apply to no fault. So no fault is a totally uncapped medical system. So you're entitled to these benefits as long as you need them, and in whatever amount that they're needed for. So these are some of the benefits that you might not think about. Medical expenses, all these different things fall under the medical umbrella. Not only just your, you know, the obvious medical bills from your doctors or therapists or, you know, family doctors, but also transportation. If you need transportation, always take them to their appointments. You get transportation back and forth from your medical appointments. Vehicle modifications. If you're in a situation that, you know, you've lost usage of a limb, your vehicle has to be modified somehow to accommodate you, whether it's somebody who, you know, if you're wheelchair bound and you have to get a vehicle now that has a ramp, so you can get a ramp up in your vehicle, they're responsible for that. If the vehicle needs modified itself to help you drive the vehicle, they're responsible for that. So these are some of the things that you wouldn't necessarily think of, you know, off the top of your head when you're talking about medical expenses, but they all fall under this umbrella. Home modifications is a huge one. If you have somebody who, you know, they have to have their home modified because they're in a wheelchair, ramp up to their house, doorways widened to accommodate a wheelchair. I've had a case recently, somebody in a wheelchair, all their cupboards were up high, so they had to move everything, they had to modify their home to move everything from up high to down low, so they could reach everything. That's in there. Things that, you know, unless you've ever been in a situation, you don't think about. I know I never thought about this one, but even making rooms bigger to modify turning radiuses for wheelchairs, to be able to get in your rooms and you know, work and move in your rooms. Bathroom modifications, you know, walk-in showers, all that kind of stuff is all included in no fault, which again is something that you may not think about as something that you're entitled to. In-home nursing care, if you have to have somebody come out to provide assistance, and then some of the ones that, you know, you commonly would think of, like, you know, reimbursing mileage if you drive to your appointments, prescriptions, different types of therapy. One of the other ones that is often overlooked too, which is a huge perk of no-fault benefits, is vocational retraining. If you have somebody who, you know, their whole life they were a laborer, you know, they ran a landscaping company, and that's what they did their entire life up until the time of their accident. And now they're in this accident, they can't use their arms as well anymore, they can't use their legs as well anymore. But they're fit to get back into the workforce, and they want to get back in the workforce. Under our current no-fault system, they can get paid vocational retraining to teach them how to use a computer, to teach them how to do other job skills that may be able to fit their physical limitations. That's something that's in your no-fault package. So just in the medical benefit umbrella alone, I mean, you're looking at a huge array of benefits that are all fantastic benefits and really, really help people that are involved in accidents to get the care they need, modifications they need to continue to live their quality of life in their homes, their vehicles, and then get retrained if necessary to get back into the workforce. So it's a huge, huge package of benefits, and a lot of those are not benefits that people tend to think about when they talk about medical expenses, but these all fall under the medical umbrella. of no-fault benefits. Huge, huge package of benefits. Wages. So they're responsible to pay wages for 3 years after the accident. That way you have your income coming in so that you can pay your bills, so that you're not going to lose your house if you have a mortgage, so that so that your electricity is going to stay on, your gas is going to stay on. You're going to get your income coming in. They're responsible to pay for that for the 3 years after the accident. What they pay is they pay 85% of your gross wages. And the reason they don't pay 100% of your gross wages is because when they knock off the 15% off the bat, that means then when that wage loss check comes to you, it's non-taxable income. So they withhold 15% off the bat, and then when you get the check for your wage loss in the mail, it's non-taxable income, so you're not paying taxes on that. They're responsible to pay for that up to 3 years after the accident. It applies if you just have a part-time job, if you have a seasonal job, if you only worked in the summertime. You're entitled to get paid your wage loss benefits if you're out during the summertime. So it's, wages obviously are huge unless, you have the financial ability to support yourself if you're out for a long period of time. Wage loss benefits are really, really important. Retirees, depending on, they may be entitled to some type of wage loss compensation. If you're retired but you have like a side job that you picked up, to keep active, stay busy, your wife told you to go get a job if you're retired. If you're a retiree and you have a job, in that situation, you're entitled to get your wage loss compensation for that. So again, it's an important benefit. Another benefit that you have under no-fault benefits, they're called replacement services. So in a situation with replacement services, these again, it's for 3 years. You're good for 3 years after the accident, so long as you need them. Replacement services are things like your household chores. So if you and your household are responsible for taking out the trash, mowing the lawn, doing the dishes, and making the beds in your home, and after the accident you can't do it, so now your spouse has to do it for you, or maybe you have a friend or family member that's coming over to do it for you, those folks are entitled to reimbursement. They get paid $20 a day in reimbursement. That can be important too, because in situations like that, for those who like to keep strangers out of their home, instead of having like a home service, like a home health aide come in and do that kind of stuff for you, no-fault benefits provide the opportunity for friends or family to come in and do those things for you. Even if they have no experience in doing these things. The reason I say that is because under the medical umbrella, there's also something called attendant care, which is super, super important. I may have glossed over it on that list. But attendant care is if you need help at home to take care of yourself. For instance, if you need help bathing, you need help dressing, changing bandages, getting in and out of bed, somebody to watch your medications for you, to help take care of your medications. Under our no-fault system, you can have a friend or family member provide that for you. And that way you can keep, strangers out of your house, so to speak. You can have a friend or family member doing it for you, and they're required to be reimbursed for that. And what they're reimbursable up to is they're required to be paid the same hourly rate that a home health care worker makes in your county. So even if they have no experience, even if they've never been trained, don't have any certifications, and a home health aide, doesn't matter. Under our no-fault benefits, that person, as long as they're providing the care for you, and it's recommended that you need the care by a doctor, it's part of it. It's part of your no-fault package. So that's important too. Part of where I see that as being, really, really helpful is folks that have traumatic brain injuries. You have some folks who have brain injuries and they need round-the-clock care, or at least need monitored around the clock. What it does is it allows that person to stay in their home as opposed to having to be moved out of their home, moved into some type of a home to be taken care of. They can stay in their house. They can get the same care that they need in their house where they're familiar, as opposed to being shipped off to some home for folks with brain injuries. And so it lets them stay at home, get the care they need from the people they know. And that can be really important. And it allows the friends and family to do that for them because they're making money. They're making money doing it. So they can afford, in a lot of times, to take the time off of work, so many hours a day to help out, because they're being compensated for it. So that's another really, really big benefit that no-fault provides. We talked about you're entitled to these benefits irrespective of fault. So regardless of who's at fault for the accident, you still get these benefits. And then this is important as well. So when you're involved in a motorcycle accident, motorcycles, like we talked about, are treated differently than motor vehicles. They're not considered motor vehicles for purposes of no-fault. So one of the areas where that makes a difference is in who pays your no-fault benefits if you're involved in a motorcycle accident. So if you're involved in a motorcycle accident, the first place you're going to look to get your no-fault benefits paid is going to be the insurer of the owner or the registrant of the motor vehicle involved in your accident. So the car, truck, bus, whoever it was that was involved in your accident. Their insurance company pays first. That's super, super important, and I'll tell you why in a minute when we talk about Beau LaFave's bill. That's important. If it turns out that the insurer of the owner or registrant of the motor vehicle involved in the accident does not have insurance, so if you get hit by an uninsured driver, then the second priority is you look at the insurer of the driver of the motor vehicle. If the driver had no insurance, then it bounces down to the motorcycle operator's auto insurance. Not your motorcycle insurance, but your car insurance. Your car insurance is third in line to pay for it. If you don't have car insurance and you were driving somebody else's bike, then it's the motorcycle owner's auto insurance. If they didn't have any insurance, then it goes to the motorcycle operator's spouse, or if you lived in the same house as a relative living in the home with you, then your relative's insurance pays for it. And if you go through this long list of insurers, and it happens sometimes, and you go through this long list and nobody has insurance, there was no insurance all around, this is another perk of Michigan, you will always get your no-fault benefits taken care of. If you go through this long list, you know, you're kind of going down the list, nobody had insurance that would apply to your accident, then what happens in Michigan is it goes to what's called the assigned claims facility, where your claim gets submitted to Lansing, you submit an application to Lansing, and then as a side of doing business in Michigan, every auto insurance company in Michigan is required to participate in this assigned claims facility. And what they do is they will, you know, they'll put your application in with the assigned claims plan, and then they have the lottery. You know, they have all the different insurance companies in a big pool. They'll draw one out of a hat for your claim, and whoever they pick just won the opportunity to process your no-fault claim. So that's how it works in Michigan. So you'll always get your no-fault benefits paid for. So it's a system that you can rely on that way. So this brings us now to, so now that's what no-fault is. Okay, so if you ever hear anybody talking about, you know, what do you get in no-fault benefits or what does no-fault cover, that's what it covers. It covers a lifetime of medical, lifetime of home modifications, vehicle modifications, vocational retraining, people coming into your home to take care of you. If you decide to have an agency come in to provide that attendant care, that's okay too. They'll have to pay for the agency like as a medical expense. 3 years worth of lost wages, 3 years worth of replacement services. Huge, huge package of benefits. What the insurance industry has been doing is they've been proposing bills where they want to try to cap benefits. They want to cap different areas of what we talked about. What I can pass around for you is, so Beau LaFave, is everybody familiar with Mr. LaFave?
Yeah.
He's a representative in your area. I think he's for Dickinson County, Delta County, and there's one more that I'm forgetting. But he's a rep from up here. House Bill 4024 is the bill that he's proposed. And what's being passed around right now is a statement that I drew up on behalf of ABATE Michigan, which for those of you that don't know is the driving force in Lansing as far as motorcycle rights go. They're the most well-known group in Lansing. They've got the most pull in Lansing. They've got the most ears of legislators in Lansing than any other motorcycle rights organization in the state of Michigan. It all started with ABATE Michigan, specifically in response to Mr. LaFave's bill, addressing the shortcomings in the bill and why if his bill's passed it's going to be damaging to everybody, especially motorcyclists. What his bill has proposed, and this goes back to the priority statute. So that priority statute we talked about. When you're involved in a motorcycle accident, it's the other guys, the motor vehicles insurance company, that's responsible to pay for the motorcyclist's no-fault benefits. What's been proposed in this bill is instead of being an unlimited medical benefit situation, what he has proposed is he wants to cap it. And he's proposed to cap it at either $250,000 total for your entire no-fault claim, meaning your medical bills, your wages, everything we talked about, capping your claim at $250,000, Or on your auto policy, you can choose to cap it at $500,000, or you can choose to keep it the status quo, keep it unlimited. Here's the problem. Under the wording of his bill, where motorcyclists are going to get hurt more than anybody else, is because under this bill, like we talked about, the motorcyclist claims off of the policy of the auto, of the motor vehicle. Under Mr. LaFave's bill, if I left here today on a motorcycle and I got hit by a motor vehicle, and I've got worlds of problems. I've got significant injuries. I'm going to be out for a long, long time. Under Mr. LaFave's bill, I am bound by the choice that the auto insurance, the insured made for their own policy. So and that's who I claim through. I claim from their policy. So under his bill, if the person that hit me chose to cap their benefits at $250,000, I am capped at $250,000. I get no choice. Motorcyclists get no choice under this bill. And there's no second insurance company to go to if it turns out that my medical expenses and wage loss are more than $250,000. If that person that hit me chose for themselves to cap it at $250,000, and now I've got a claim on their policy, so per Mr. LaFave's bill, I'm now capped at $250,000. What that means is I'm on my own hook for any medical expenses, wage loss, anything that I incur beyond $250,000. That's probably one of the biggest problems with this bill, is that motorcyclists get the short end of the stick there, as they and pedestrians. If you're hit as a pedestrian, you're in the same boat as a motorcyclist, in that under the law, you claim from the auto insurance, from the insured from the auto that hit you. So motorcyclists and pedestrians essentially are getting the short end of the stick here, where everybody gets a choice on how many benefits they want, or if they want to cap their benefits, except motorcyclists and pedestrians. We're bound by the cap that the person that hit you chose for themselves. So that's a problem. One of the other problems with the bill, with Mr. LaFave's bill, is when it comes to medical expenses. Under his bill, it would basically, has anybody ever been involved in a workers' compensation claim? Anybody? If you have, you know that under workers' compensation, a doctor that treats a workers' comp patient, even though they may charge $200 for an office visit, under workers' compensation fee schedules, they may be forced to accept like $50 for that appointment. If you've never been involved in a workers' compensation claim, what you may not know is there are not many doctors out there that will take workers' compensation patients, because they know that they're going to get paid a fraction of what they actually may be owed on their bills. Under Mr. LaFave's plan, instead of keeping the status quo, which basically says that no-fault medical providers are required to be paid a reasonable rate for services they provide, what he wants to do is he wants to change it up so that anybody who treats an auto patient or somebody who's involved in an auto accident, he wants those doctors to have to go by workers' compensation fee schedules. What that's going to do is that's going to chill medical providers from treating auto patients. As it is right now, if you've been involved in an accident, there are some medical providers, some really good doctors out there that are very hesitant to treat auto patients because they know that, they've heard horror stories about the way auto insurance companies treat the claimants, and sometimes they deny bills and they have to go out and hire an attorney to get the bills paid. And that happens. If they're forced to take workers' compensation fee schedules, your pool of doctors who are willing to treat auto patients is going to be cut even more, because you're going to have doctors that they're going to understand they're not going to get paid hardly anything on their bill. So your choice of health care is going to be diminished in that sense. So that's another issue with Beau LaFave's bill, is asking these medical providers to accept workers' compensation fee schedules, make it very, very difficult to get medical treatment. The thing that, if you've heard anything from the insurance industry, one of the things that they talk about is they say, well, we can't afford to pay this anymore. We can't afford to pay unlimited medical bills anymore. It's just becoming, the system is broken. We can't afford to do so anymore. And I wouldn't have believed it until I saw it with my own eyes. But when you go to Lansing and we sit down with folks from the insurance industry, is anybody familiar with the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association? Has everybody heard of MCCA? That's kind of a hot button topic that comes up. What the MCCA is a fund that we all pay into. We pay it on our motorcycles, we pay it on our cars. It's a fee that we pay into this Michigan Catastrophic Claims Fund. And what that fund is it's you can kind of look at it like an insurance company for the insurance companies. What it is once an insurance company has paid out $550,000 on your injury claim, so your medical bills, your wages, on that no-fault side of things. In a catastrophic injury situation, once they pay over $550,000, they're required to continue to pay it. It's a lifetime benefit on the medical expenses and 3 years on the wages. But once they breach over $550,000, they're allowed to get reimbursed out of this Michigan Catastrophic Claims Fund. So it's kind of like an insurance company for them. Once they pay out past that cap, they continue to have to pay it, but they get reimbursed. When we're in Lansing and the insurance companies claim they're going broke, they don't have enough, they don't have money, they can't keep paying this. Every time we ask them, how much money do you guys have laying around in the Catastrophic Claims Fund? Because not every auto claim in Michigan is a catastrophic claim. I mean, $550,000 is a lot of money. I mean, usually if you've incurred that much in medical expenses, it's catastrophic. You know, you usually have serious orthopedic injuries, you have a really bad brain injury. Most cases don't reach that number. So it's not like this fund is being depleted for every case that we have in the state of Michigan. So when we're with these folks in Lansing, we ask them, we'll say, well, how much money do you guys have laying around that catastrophic claims fund that goes unused every year and we continue to pay into it? Honest to God, guys, it's like dealing with a kid. Well, we don't have to tell you that. So they lose a lot of credibility. Okay, I mean, there's rumors going around that there's 20, 30, 40 billion dollars in that fund. And if there is, it's probably a good reason why they don't want to show what the numbers are, because then their argument would completely crumble. But that's their argument. That's their argument for why they need to cap no-fault benefits, or why they need to eliminate no-fault benefits, because they're going broke, they can't afford to do so. That catastrophic claims fund is the one thing that they refuse to show, that they never reveal how much it is, and until they do that, I would submit to you, it's a very, very hard argument to buy. The other interesting thing about this is they say that if we're able to cap this, that you're going to get some type of a refund. Not a refund, but you're going to get some type of reduction on your premium. When they're talking about a reduction on your premium, all they're talking about is a reduction on that one line item of your insurance benefits that you pay for no-fault benefits. Which if you look at if you go home and you look at your auto deck sheet where they line item out the different expenses that you pay, on average, the average person pays about $350 or $400 for no-fault benefits on their auto policy. So when they're talking about saving you money, they're only talking about saving you some percentage off of that $400, as opposed to the bottom line, which is usually closer to like $3,000 or $4,000. The other thing on that is the numbers that I've heard them talk about is they're talking about if they if they go to a system where they're allowed to repeal no-fault benefits or cap no-fault benefits, they're going to save you about 20%. So 20% of $400, they're saving you $80 in exchange for you giving up everything that we've talked about. Which, we can all draw our own conclusions, but you're not going to be able to go anywhere for $80 and buy the protection that you get with Michigan no-fault benefits. I mean, no insurance company is going to sell you unlimited medical benefits, 3 years worth of wages, unlimited home modifications, unlimited vehicle modifications, your prescriptions. Nobody's going to sell you a policy where they'll cover all that stuff for you for $80. So the savings that they tell you that you're saving, that's what you're looking at. The other interesting thing about this is some of these bills that have come up where they talk about these savings, there's only been one bill that's been introduced, although they tell the general public they're going to promise these savings. There's only one bill out of the 8 or 9 bills in the last 3 or 4 years that actually mentioned any type of savings. So there's no guarantee that you're going to get this promise kept from the insurance industry. And the one bill that did mention it, it wasn't even guaranteed. The one bill that mentioned it, and it's actually in Mr. LaFave's bill. If you go online and look up, you can go to Michigan Legislature and look up these bills. It's House Bill 4024. What you'll find in there is towards the end of the set of bills, the end of the set of pages that makes up the bill, where it talks about the savings. There's a provision in there that basically says we're going to shoot to save folks at least 10% in benefits if they choose to keep it unlimited. We're going to try to save them at least 15% if they choose to cap it at 250. We're going to try to save them at least 20% if they cap it at 500. But if we can't, all they need to do is just drop a little memo to the insurance director for the state of Michigan and explain why they couldn't do it, and then they don't have to do it.
Yeah.
So that's in the bill. So any savings that they're talking about, whatever the number may be, nothing is guaranteed. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind too. Nothing in the bill guarantees that you're going to get any savings if they cap this or they repeal this. So the bill that you see, House Bill 4024, that's the one that was proposed in January. It currently sits in the Committee on Insurance. Where all the Committee on Insurance does in Lansing is they just kind of look at it, and if it's something that they think should be moved on to the General Assembly to be looked at, it will. And 99 times out of 100 bills make it out of committee. It has to be something really unusual about the bill to not make it out of committee. So eventually this bill will make it out of committee, and then it'll go to the legislators. It'll go to the House to look at, run through hearings, and see if they want to hold a vote on it. That bill was introduced in January. More recently, and it's recent enough that I don't have a copy of it for you, but more recently there was a bill that was introduced, again if you want to look it up. This one is House Bill 4397, where instead of capping benefits, this calls for a total repeal. So literally, you would get 0 as part of a no-fault claim if no fault is repealed. I've never met Mr. LaFave, but the sponsor of the bill to cap these benefits, like on that sheet that we just talked about. And now only 2 months later, he's jumped on with 4 other sponsors. He's one of the ones now sponsoring to repeal no-fault benefits. So I think it's pretty safe to say that he's a true believer in getting rid of no-fault benefits. What I have here, should have passed this out before, I apologize.
I'm a true believer of getting rid of both.
But this is something that I think will more illustrate the point on a no-fault repeal. What she's passing out is an analysis that I did on one of my actual cases that I had, where a gentleman was involved in a motorcycle accident, and for motorcycle accidents, as far as they go, this was kind of a mild, I call it like a mild to moderate type of an injury, okay? In his case, obviously his accident happened, it was a few years ago, and what I did is I compared what he actually got in the case that I represented him on for his no-fault benefits versus what shape he would have been in if no-fault was repealed. And what you'll see in there is he had a number of different claims that were being made. He had a modest wage loss claim for a number of months. He was retired. He had a part-time job, so he had a moderate wage loss claim. He had medical expenses. He had attended care and household chores for a period of time. And if you take a look at that sheet, I mean, you'll see the difference. I mean, literally, if he would not have had no-fault benefits, he'd have been in rough shape. What he had was, in a situation like that, if no fault was ever repealed, one of the other things you're going to hear the insurance industry tell you is they're going to tell you, don't worry about it. If you repeal no fault benefits, all you'll need to do is you'll just, like all the other states, you'll just take your claim for wages, and you'll take your claim for medical bills, and you'll take your claim for attendant care and household chores, and you'll instead of making that as a wage loss or as a no fault claim, you'll just add that to the claim what you're entitled to against the at-fault driver. That's what they're going to tell you. That's how other states do it. Here's the problem. Does anybody know in Michigan what the minimum liability limits are that anybody's required to carry in Michigan on their auto policy? Does anybody know?
2040.
2040, which means $20,000 per person, up to $40,000 per accident. So what that means is, if you're involved in an accident, and they're going to tell you that you can make that claim against the other driver, you would have to take your claim for medical expenses, wages, whatever it may be, it could end up being hundreds of thousands of dollars, make that claim against the at-fault driver, and if that at-fault driver only has $20,000 worth of coverage, his insurance company is going to cut you a check for $20,000 and wish you good luck moving forward. If you've got medical expenses, many times that's not even going to cover your hospital visit. So for them to tell you that you can just don't worry about it, we're not taking this away, we're just telling you you can just make that claim now against the at-fault driver, it's completely disingenuous. Because in accident cases like that, especially in a day and age when everybody's complaining about how high their auto insurance is, more often than I'd like to admit, a lot of the cases that I see are cases of people that have minimum policies. So if that's the situation, you're basically going to be making your claim for everything against their $20,000 policy, and you know, they'll cut you the check for $20,000, and then you're on your own. At the end of that sheet, and I apologize, I didn't keep it for myself, but in that case, I mean, you'll see if it was a $20,000 policy, it would have made a dent in his medical expenses, and then he'd have been on the hook for the rest of his medical expenses on his own. Wouldn't even have touched paying his wages, wouldn't even have touched paying for attendant care, and then he would have had, you know, no recovery for his pain and suffering. Yeah. So the example that I gave you, if you go to that last page, the last paragraph. So his total economic loss was $96,691.07. If that at-fault, if this were repealed and he were making that claim against the at-fault driver, and the at-fault driver had a $20,000 policy, he would have gotten a check for $20,000, and now he's only $76,000 in the hole. If the person had a $100,000 policy, which you see, I mean, you'll see folks that bump it up. Some have 20, some have 50, 100. Occasionally, you might see 250. But even in a situation where they had $100,000, so it takes care of all his no-fault expenses, and then he gets $3,000 for his pain and suffering. Now, I pointed out that this example that I gave you was somebody who was involved in kind of like a mild to moderate type of an accident. He didn't need any surgery, fractured ribs, fractured clavicle, missed 6 months of his part-time work, 2.5 months of attendant care. That's kind of a mild motorcycle accident. I don't have to tell you guys. I mean, usually if there's a motorcycle versus an auto accident, injuries can be much, much worse than that. So to kind of put things in perspective, on that last paragraph as well, I'll give you an example of what a more serious motorcycle accident looks like under this scenario. I had a gentleman that was involved in a really bad motorcycle accident. He had fractures of his humerus, tibial plateau, fractures of metatarsal, had an orbital fracture. Usually in situations like that, motorcyclists end up getting hurt pretty significantly. In his case, for the first 10 months, he had $485,000 in medical expenses alone. That's just the first 10 months. That basically got him through his initial first 3 surgeries, got him out of the hospital, and that was about 6 months of inpatient rehab. That doesn't even count once he got home, the follow-up doctors that he needed, the follow-up physical therapy he needed, the follow-up vocational therapy that he needed. Doesn't count, that doesn't even touch his wages. He was never able to get back to work. He missed all 3 years of his wages. So that puts in perspective for you, if this were a no-fault repealed state, even if that guy got lucky and the other guy had $250,000 worth of auto coverage, which you don't see very often, so in his case, he's still, you know, $250,000 in the hole for somebody who had $250,000 worth of liability coverage. So this just kind of illustrates the point that if no fault were repealed, we'd all be in bad shape. Some of the folks who advocate for no fault repeal, they say, well, don't worry about it. If you have health insurance, what are you worried about? Okay, well, one, not every health insurance plan covers motorcycle accidents. For one, there have been some motorcycle exclusions that we've seen in some of the smaller health insurance companies where they have exclusions on their rider where they list out that they don't provide medical expenses for inherently dangerous activities. And motorcycling, I didn't say motorcycle drag racing, motorcycling is sometimes on some of these policies considered an inherently dangerous activity, along with bullfighting and skydiving and all this other stuff. But you get some of these smaller companies are excluding motorcycle coverage. So if that's the case, health insurance isn't going to help you out at all. For folks that do have health insurance and health insurance covers it, you can only imagine if no fault were repealed, what the health insurance industry would do to their premiums. They know they have now this whole new set of captive audience folks that are going to be relying on health insurance more than they may have been before, because now we have no fault. So now they're going to need good health coverage for the event they're ever involved in an accident. One can only imagine what health insurance premiums will do if no fault were ever repealed. So, the other point to that is when some of these legislators arrogantly tell you to just get health insurance, okay, okay, well fine, even if I have the best health insurance coverage, even if I can afford the increased premiums, so fine, medical bills we take care of, but what about my wages? If I've got that much in medical expenses that I'm going to be on the shelf for that long, I know I'm not working. So my medical expense might be getting paid, but how am I paying my bills? You know, what is your guys' answer for the whole wage loss issue? You know, what's your answer for the home modification issue? What's your answer for the attendant care issue? So my hope is that you can take the information that I provided and educate your legislators. Like I said, I'm not a very political guy, but I've noticed in going to Lansing, when you actually sit down with your legislators who are not necessarily the ones who propose the bill, but they're the ones that have to vote on the bill, it's amazing how many times when you sit down with these people and you just point out these things to them, they had no idea. Okay, because basically what they're getting is they're getting people in their district that are saying auto insurance premiums are too high. They're told by the insurance industry, hey, get rid of no fault, it's going to fix everything. It's going to reduce premiums. That's what they hear. So they figure, why not? That's a good thing. But when you educate them on what it actually means, I mean, half of them don't even know what no-fault benefits are. They just think it's another line item that you pay for on your auto insurance and have no clue what it means. I actually had one legislator that I went and I sat down with, and when I was starting to talk to them and told them what no-fault benefits were, they thought no-fault benefits were a collision coverage. Honest to God. They thought it was just another type of collision coverage on your car. So a lot of them had no idea. If you sit down and you point this out to them, and you know, and one of the tactics I like to use with them is I say, look, you know, I'm coming to you as an advocate for the motorcycling community, but this isn't exclusive to the motorcycling community. If no-fault benefits are repealed, Mr. Legislator, and you get in your car and you leave home today and there's no no-fault benefits, you know, I tell them, I hope your package as a legislator includes wage loss replacement and medical bill replacement, because if not, you're on your own hook too if this gets repealed. And sometimes you make it personal to them and see that this is affecting their pocketbook too, you can get a little bit further than you can without it. So use it as an education tool. I guarantee you, even if you guys had no idea what no-fault benefits were, and you maybe learned a little bit about no-fault benefits today, I guarantee you that right now you guys know more than probably 75% of legislators in Lansing about what no-fault is. So I'd recommend that you get in touch with your legislators. If Beau LaFave is your legislator, good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, because it seems like he's a true believer on repealing no-fault benefits. But you can at least express in a letter or a phone call, you know, if you tell them you're from ABATE, Michigan, or you tell them you're part of the motorcycling community, you know, legislators too, you know, they understand if they want to keep their job, they got to keep their constituents happy as well. So even if you're in a district where you've got a true believer, as I like to call them, that no matter what you tell them, they're not going to change their mind. You know, they're too far in bed with the insurance industry to change anything. What you can at least do is you can at least give him reason to think that if he goes ahead with these bills that a lot of his constituents are not happy with, he could be losing votes next election period. So, you know, job security means something to these guys too. So if you if you at least express your concern, even if you're in a district where you've got a true believer, I think it's worth it. If you're in a district where you have, especially if you're in a district, if you have a new legislator, with the with the elections this January, there's a lot of new folks in there that we really don't know where they stand on this stuff yet because they're brand new. We don't know if they're in favor of no-fault repeal or if they're in favor of keeping it. But especially if you're in a district where you have a new legislator, be the first one to get in their ear. Explain to them what's going on and explain to them that if this bill were to go through. So, like I said, I would have never believed it until I saw it. You know, sitting down with some of these people and their staff. Even if you can't get through to the legislator, sit down with their staff. They usually will send an aide or their chief of staff out to talk with you. Feel free to run copies of anything that I gave you if you want to illustrate the point to these folks. And it's really eye-opening on how, and it's not necessarily a knock on the legislators. I mean, I subscribe to you can go to Michigan Legislature's website, and you can subscribe to be on their emailing list. And what they'll do is, like every couple of weeks, they'll send you an email with every single new bill in Michigan that's been proposed. And it's amazing to me. I mean, when I get these emails, there's usually 60 or 70 bills, and they range in everything from, you know, education bills to bills to fix the roads to bills regarding gun laws to these no-fault bills to environmental bills. I mean, there's such a wide variety of bills that I find it hard to believe that unless a legislature has a particular interest, personal interest in a certain area of law or a certain area, I mean, they're not going to know about everything. And a lot of times, you know, like I said, the danger about this bill is everybody's looking to save money. Makes sense. So when you get people that don't understand what no fault is and everybody's complaining about higher auto insurance is, that's what these legislators hear. And if they think there's a bill out there that can fix that can make their constituents happy, save the money on auto insurance, they're going to do it. And that's the danger in this, is that's the lowest common denominator that the insurance companies play on, is they talk about how our premiums are so high, we need to fix no fault. So when legislators hear that, if they don't hear the other side of the story and don't hear what you're giving up, well, first of all, hear there's no guarantee you're going to get a reduced premium, but then on top of that, hear that what you're giving up, a lot of them, you know, you'd be surprised how much headway you can make with these people because it affects them too. So that'd be my strongest suggestion to you, is get in touch with your legislators, let them know, you know, what this no-fault stuff all actually means, what you're giving up if these bills are passed, and stay on them. Like I said, it's really, really interesting to see what a difference you can make with a legislator who will listen to you, and you know, in doing so, you know, try to keep no fault as we know it. So if you guys have any questions, I can answer any questions. I've got my card up here. If you guys want to take my card, you can call me, email me. Any questions that you have on any of this stuff or anything pertaining to, you know, motorcycle accidents in general, I'm more than happy to, you know, to answer any questions that you guys have or help out in any way that I